Hello and welcome to our 2020 primary election virtual candidate forums. If you're on social media, please hit the share button. Make sure all your friends have the opportunity to see the discussion today. I'm William Hatfield. I'm the editor of the Tallahassee Democrat. I'm today's moderator. I'd like to thank our partners, the League of Women Voters of Tallahassee, and introduce Christine Coble, who will be asking questions on behalf of the League and its partners. Periodically, you'll see both our election websites on the screen where you can find more information to help you figure out how to vote with confidence. For these forums, we are using a platform called StreamYard. Because it's 2020 and anything that can go wrong likely will go wrong, we ask that you bear with us through any technical difficulties as we go along. We, of course, have a full house today. The candidates for City Commission Seat 2. The incumbent is Curtis Richardson, and his opponents are Trish Brown, Lynette Halter, Bill Schack, and Jerry Seay. Here's how things are going to work today. We will take turns asking questions, and we'll rotate which candidate gets to answer first. I'm largely going in alphabetical order. However, I messed up alphabetical order and inadvertently swapped C and Schack. Forgive me on that basic fail, but it'll all work out in the end, because each candidate will have many chances to be first and last. We're going to ask that you keep your questions to no more than 90 seconds. You can certainly be much shorter than that. I'll be keeping time. I have a bell, which I will ding when your time is up. Sounds like that. You don't have to come to a dead stop, but please finish your sentence quickly and we will be moving on. In the middle, we will also have a lightning round where we ask you to keep your answers to just a sentence. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube and you have questions for the candidates, go ahead and type them in the comments and we'll try to get to as many as we can. Candidates are also invited to come along behind and answer those questions on the thread. Time is very limited, so you can improve your chances of having a question being asked if you keep it brief and polite and make the question applicable to all of the candidates. Questions from our candidates. Let's do this. We're going to jump in to the first question, and that will be asked by the League of Women Voters.
What is the #1 challenge facing the city, and how would you address it?
And we are going to start with Ms. Brown on this one.
Hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I was muted. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Well, 26% of the poverty rate, that's what we have here. And we have the highest rate of economic segregation in the country, which is twice the rate of Florida. And we must stop these big projects that are only benefiting contractors and developers and use the money in the community. We do this by bringing marginalized, impoverished groups to the table at City Hall by increasing wages of strengthening unions, improving and expanding public health care, providing affordable and free child care options, investing in the public education and transportation, and through the comprehensive job programs, and investing in small, locally owned businesses. Essentially, we do this through a bottom-up investment strategy. Abandon the Reaganomics of the past, please.
All right, thank you. Ms. Halter, you're up next.
I believe the biggest problem is crime, particularly violent crime. I don't see anything being really done about it. I feel like our police are hampered. We don't have a police chief with a contract. People are afraid. Everybody has got one dog or two or more. And everybody has some kind of, well, not everybody. Most people have some kind of a security system where they can look at somebody from their door. Would I handle it? To a lesser degree, I would do neighborhood alerts. I did a neighborhood alert in the past where we called criminals without ever leaving our homes. We would talk to each other on our phones and watch out the doors, or windows, usually not the doors. And then when we saw what they were doing, we called the police. And we actually caught 3 burglars that way. But the police are the ones that should do the confrontation of these people. Quite frequently, the burglars are violent. We've heard a lot of home invasion, which is another word for violent burglary when somebody's home. And whatever help the police can get given to them, recognizing that there are violent gangs that have moved into Tallahassee, and they're attacking our youth, particularly our at-risk youth, forcing them into gangs, and this makes for more crime.
All right, thank you. Next up, Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you, William and Christine, for having us today, for hosting this forum, giving us an opportunity to share with the voters what our views on issues are and how we move our wonderful city forward. I think the greatest challenge that we're facing right now is this coronavirus pandemic. It has affected not only the healthcare system in our community, but our economy as well. And so one of the things that we have tried to do as a city is continue to provide the same level and quality of services that the citizens of this community have come to expect. But we're looking at a tremendous deficit in our budget. We have been fiscally prudent, and so it looks like we will be able to balance our budget and still maintain that same level of service that this community has come to expect. But it's going to be a challenge. We're going to do that without considering any increase in taxes and supporting our small businesses. We did that through a $1 million grant to our small businesses to help them. It was a grant, a bridge loan for those that qualified for the federal funding. And we also provided $1 million for our not-for-profit organizations who contribute tremendously to the health and vitality of our community. So that's our biggest challenge at this point.
Thank you. Dr. Seay, you are up next.
Okay, great. Thank you. You know, we are supposed to have been endowed with inalienable rights, one of which is the pursuit of happiness. And I think our biggest challenge here is that that path is not clear for everyone. We have issues related to poverty, education, health, a disparity in the monies that are available for economic development, affordable housing issues. So what we must be able to do is to clear that path so that everyone is able to pursue happiness, which means they've got to be equipped to do so.
Thank you. Mr. Schack?
Yes, thank you both for having us today. And again, congratulations to all the candidates. I think obviously the number one concern of our city is the coronavirus. However, if we take that aside and understand that Leon County, I believe, has done a really good job, the number one issue facing our community and has been for the past many years is public safety and crime. I believe that has been something that leadership has ignored in a way. We tried to hire a new police chief, and that turned out to be a colossal failure. And I think what we need in this community is a city commission that is pro-police, or at least supports the police, and I don't believe we've done that. So coronavirus is the immediate concern. However, public safety is a concern that addresses many, many issues that happen in our community.
Thank you. We're going to stay with
William?
the topic of, yes.
Question, you said we'd have 30 seconds to address an issue.
Usually if a candidate
addresses us directly,
brings up another candidate, we'll do 30
Okay.
seconds. Yep.
Well,
What was that?
he referred to leadership, and I'm part of the leadership.
Okay. Let's hear what you got, Commissioner. 30 seconds.
Well, I would certainly say to Mr. Schack and all of the citizens of the city of Tallahassee, we have not ignored public safety. My family and I have been the victims of crime. Just recently, within walking distance of our house, a teenager was shot and killed on the grounds of my church. We have made that a #1 priority over all of the time that I have been on the commission. We've provided resources to our police department. We did a national search.
All right. And we're going to talk more about crime as the forum continues. But I want to stick with coronavirus for a second here. Obviously, we are in unprecedented times. How do you rate the city's response so far? What are we doing well? What can we do better? We are going to start with you, Ms. Halter.
That's one that is very difficult to say. I believe the city is more coward and fear than anything else. I lived through things that were worse than this. I was told to hide under my desk because we would be nuked when I was in school. I lived through the polio. And that, I would far rather that I be a victim of a disease than children. Our businesses need to be get up and running again. We still need to take the measures that we're taking to protect people in terms of physical distance and masks. And the more testing is a great thing, which I went out and immediately got done. But our businesses need to get back to work. Just like the greatest generation, and I'm one generation away from that, got back to work and built our country back up. We need to build our city back up. I see too many businesses that have folded.
All right. Thank you. Next question, or the same question, and that is Commissioner Richardson. You're up next.
Well, these are unprecedented times that we find ourselves. No one would have ever imagined that we'd be here just 6 months ago. But I think our city has been a leader in addressing this issue locally. We partnered with both Tallahassee Memorial Hospital and Florida A&M and the Bond Community Clinic to provide testing for our citizens when no one else was doing that. We provided funding for our local businesses so that they could make that transition before the federal funding came in. We provided the same level of funding for our not-for-profit organizations. We were the first to provide masks for our citizens. We did 25,000 masks and gave those away to citizens free throughout the community. We also quarantined our utility workers so that we could make sure that they would be available if and when there was a hurricane or a disruption in our utility services. We've communicated with our community and provided information necessary for them to be safe and to keep their families safe. And so I think we've done an excellent job as a city. Is there more to be done? Of course. We're doing this on a day-to-day basis because we aren't finding any leadership from the state or federal level. And so we're taking that responsibility among ourselves here locally.
Thank you. Dr. Seay, same question.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think the city has done a good job of making sure that there are testing sites, that the county stood up and said, let's wear these masks. They were fairly quick to respond to increased infections. They've closed things down when they've had to. My concern now has to do with the schools. And I'm wondering how it's possible to consider allowing the children to go back to school in a physical sense, and the teachers, and putting them in harm's way when we simply don't have enough information to allow such a dangerous activity. I think that instead of worrying about how to get them back to school, we need to be thinking about how can we make sure that their online experience is the best it can be. I'm not a fan of sending the children back to school, and I think that's going to be one of the things that will be called into question in the future, in spite of all the other things that the city has stepped up to do.
Thank you. Mr. Schack.
Thanks for the question. I think one of the biggest issues we have is that the science and information keeps changing almost daily. And the big challenge is the mask ordinance that was instituted, making businesses be responsible for policing their own business. And I wasn't a proponent of a mask mandate. However, I'm someone who follows it. But I think the businesses are struggling with trying to police it themselves. But the bottom line is the city and the state, we can't just close up shop. We have to stay open. We're losing too many businesses, and that's going to be a continued challenge. And I agree with Dr. Seay that the schools are really in a tough situation right now. But listening to the school board meeting, I think they're trying to get a handle on it. But overall, Leon County, our city, has done a great job. And I think kudos goes to the residents of Tallahassee. My experiences with the homeless shelter, we mitigated the problem and moved everybody out by the end of March. We were as proactive as any facility in the entire country of getting people out of that kind of living situation. And we've been very successful with that.
All right, thank you. Ms. Brown, you have the last word on this question.
First off, I would like to say that we needed more test sites. Even on the south side of town, at Bragg Stadium, people waited in line for 4 to 5 hours before getting tested. That's traumatic and exhausting, and that's just too much congestion. We should have had more sites in the neighborhoods where they were more accessible to. I also feel that we could have been more inclusive on our situations, the situation of the pandemic, like starting from the beginning. I also feel that we should have also like off. How can I say this? Should have been more prepared as far as like having masks on standby, knowing that we're going to need so many. So with that being said, first and foremost, I'll say that we definitely need to stand with teachers and our parents when they say that this isn't safe to return to school in August. And we need to make sure that the city is enforcing its mask policy inside businesses. And finally, we need to make sure that people who forced to work due to poverty and low wages have access to resources they need to be able to care for the children and the homes, their homes to be safe. The city needs to be making taking the lead role in ensuring the resources of most of the vulnerable people that are here.
All right, we are going to continue. The next question is coming from the League of Women Voters. Commissioner Richardson will be the first on this question. Christine?
Okay.
Yes, this is a two-part question, and it's together with our forum partner, the Alliance of Tallahassee Neighborhoods. How do you see your role as a commissioner in relation to the city manager and staff, and how would you rate the effectiveness of the current city manager, and what, if any, changes would you make? Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you, Christine. I am a neighborhood proponent. I've been president of my neighborhood association for the 30 years that I've lived here in Tallahassee when my wife and I built our home on the south side of town. I have a lot of confidence in the current city manager. We did a national search and interviewed 3 individuals for that position, and Mr. Gold was by far the most qualified for the position, and I think has done a wonderful job in leading this city and its organization. He has put together a tremendous leadership team, and they have provided unparalleled, I think, services for the citizens of the city of Tallahassee. We have a balanced budget. Every year, we are in great fiscal shape as a city. We've got reserve funds, and that's what's helped us to balance our budget. In that respect, we've been able to provide services without increasing the tax burden on our citizens, and we intend to continue with that. In terms of what I would change, I would say that 3 of the 5 commissioners, when we rated the city manager this past time around, 3 of the 5 of us gave him a perfect 5 out of 5, and the 4th gave him a 4.5 out of 5. So I think that tells us the kind of job that he's doing as the city manager of Tallahassee.
Thank you. Dr. Seay, you're up next.
Thank you very much. You know, I've worked with a lot of staff in planning and historic preservation, wonderful people working very hard to move forward and move the city forward. My experience with some of the other staff has not been what I would have considered to be effective. Here's the thing. I'm particularly involved with CRA and blueprint kinds of things. And the problem there is that staff decides what staff wants to do, as opposed to staff doing what the city wants done. Now, the intermediaries are supposed to be our elected officials, but they wait for staff to tell them what to do on a position, as opposed to them telling staff. Heretofore, as a result, we're looking at communities that haven't been touched that should have been affected by these CRA monies and blueprint monies. In fact, blueprint has torn down neighborhoods in the name of progress. These are historic neighborhoods that could have been saved, that could have been even boosted up to tourist areas. That's how far back their roots go in this community. So I have quite a few concerns about how Blueprint and CRA staff have allowed the city to continue these pockets of poverty, pockets where services are not available. And it's the same staff for the past 25 years, particularly in CRA.
Thank you. Mr. Schack.
Yes, sir. I think the city manager, runs the day-to-day operations of the city, and no one argues that the city has some great people running our city, and that's terrific. However, we need to have the city commission needs to hold people accountable for their results. And going as far back as the last city manager, this commission or the previous commission as a whole never held that city manager accountable for his indiscretions and allowed him to decide his own fate. And I think that was shameful. As far as this city manager goes right now, his colossal failure in trying to hire the new police chief and the emails that came out showing how he was basically strong-arming Gilliam, and Gilliam, to his credit, said, no, thank you, I'm not going to operate that way. Not one commissioner, rebuked that or did anything to say what they did was give him a 5 out of 5 rating. I just don't believe that is the way things should be. The city commission should hold the city manager accountable, and they didn't do that in this case. And I think that's shameful again.
Thank you. Commissioner Richardson, you want 30 seconds to respond to that?
I do. We did, again, a national search for a police chief, and it came down to 3 individuals that we were considering. Of course, Mr. Gillum out of St. Petersburg was everybody's #1 choice. He chose to decline the position because he had some issues with the contract that he was being offered. But what the citizens have to understand, he was the first police chief ever offered a contract because that's what he asked for. He would have been making $80,000 a year more than the previous police chief. We were going to front load his leave time, which is what he asked for. That would have been $130,000. But he chose to remain in St. Petersburg. And so we hired Chief Revel, and I think that was a good choice for the city of Tallahassee.
Keep things moving. Ms. Brown, you're up next on this question.
It is our responsibility to make sure that the most qualified and compassionate individuals will these roles. The city manager, in regards to his performance, I feel is a lack of professionalism, and the nepotism has got to end. As commissioners elected by the people, it is our responsibility to determine policy by listening to the people that has elected us. The staff then conducts the research necessary, and we find the best way to enact that policy. Simply put. Thank you.
Ms. Halter?
Very interesting. I find in Tallahassee, the civil service workers for the city are not in any hurry to leave. They really like their jobs. So somebody's doing something right. But the police chief that was Mr. Gillum, his contract was something that nobody would have accepted that they gave him. That he could be fired at the commissioner's decision anytime, and he could not hire the help that he was going to hire. And we're already shorthanded with police. Bill, I'm on the same side of you as what you were talking about. Matter of fact, I think I've said those words before. But I do have some questions on education or getting back to schools that I'd like to ask the other candidates.
All right, we're going to keep things moving to development, another very hot topic in the city of Tallahassee. Dr. Seay, you were the first question on this one. How should the city be balancing the need for development and economic growth with the needs of long-term residents and others who don't want the landscape and character of the community to change?
Well, first of all, you have to respect what the people are asking to have happen. They don't want the landscape to change. So how do we move forward on that? That has to be the first consideration. We need to address affordable housing as a development issue. There are quite a few projects out there that would fit this, whether it's rehabbing vacant homes or going for the land trust. We need folks to be homeowners so that they have skin in the game when it comes time to what happens in the city. And we need to take those folks who are paying these rents and get them out of rental situations if possible and into homes. That's the first thing we should be doing. Development, if people want to come here, we do not need to clear cut acre upon acre to put in a housing project. We need to figure out what kind of architectural techniques do we need to employ to keep our trees, to keep our canopy. It's a part of who the city is. And to that extent, we haven't done that. Do we need more hotels? Maybe we do, but we're going to have to figure out a way to get the hotels to the point when they hire folks that they're hiring them at a livable wage. We can't continue to support this low income, this low pay scale that some of these projects bring with them.
Thank you. Mr. Schack.
Well, the problem is not growth in our community. The problem is we're growing faster than our infrastructure. I thought the process was to put some infrastructure in place before you build something. And what we're doing is deciding to put roads through existing neighborhoods that are just going to create more traffic and potentially a safety issue. Those are decisions that we're making. As far as becoming an 18-hour downtown, which is a big focus. We're not even focused on where the scooters are going to go and the bicycles are going to go and people are going to walk around those areas or where people are going to park. I mean, we're not even preparing for that kind of thing right now, and I think that's a little bit of an issue. And I think development is something that we need to be taking exactly what Dr. Seay said. We need affordable housing. I work for an organization that has shown what a tiny house development or a apartment type development can be used in this city to be successful. And maybe we should take some of those things and see if we can't employ that in the city. This commission likes to talk about Habitat of Humanity and all their great work, but they can only build so many homes. But if we fund them, maybe we can build more homes and build their team up. But 8 homes a year is not going to get the job done in this community. So we need to be focused on doing something to help everybody.
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
The idea of development is only useful with improved existing future residents. Current strategy is not working, investing in $78 million in Northwest Gateway project or $53 million in a convention center or a $60 million TBD headquarters. Or renovating an airport for that matter. Projections out of the convention industry is that the revenue will be down even after the coronavirus. Airport expansions are rarely profitable in cities this size. We must pursue a bottom-up economic strategy, like I said before, that lifts people out of poverty and gives them opportunities. And when I say that, I mean that we can't let contractors and corporations come into this community that don't have at the top of their agenda, how do we put equity back into all communities? How do and that we, at least paying $15 to $25 an hour living wage to those people working under those contractors. This will improve the conditions, not just for those who are no longer living in desperation, but for the entire city by building community and decreasing crime rate. Win-win.
Let's see where we are. I believe we're on Ms. Halter now.
Yes, I see that we have a great many apartments and they're going to be vacant. I see a lot of nice old quads that are going to be vacant. I see homes that are going to be going into foreclosure. All of those things can be affordable housing. I'd love to live in one of those lofts above one of the buildings downtown. The city encourages people to do that kind of thing. Affordable housing for people, there's all kinds of ways to do them. There are individuals who will renovate houses and sell them to people on lease purchase. Namely, they live in a house that they're buying and they pay as much as they would for rent. There are options available as long as it's encouraged by the city.
Thank you. Commissioner Richardson, you have the last word on this question.
Thank you, William. And that's one of the things that we have to consciously be aware of is how we grow as a city. In the 30 years that I've lived here, we've grown tremendously as a city, and we will continue to grow. If we don't grow, we're dying. But what we have to do is manage that growth. It has to be responsible growth. And I can give credit to leaders in the past who had the foresight to establish the urban services area, to confine growth to that USA and develop parcels within the USA so that we wouldn't be faced with the urban sprawl that many cities like Tampa and Orlando are faced with, and everything is paved over. We wanted to protect our rural areas. We have done that in the city of Tallahassee. We've put infrastructure in place. We've taxed ourselves to do that through the blueprint projects. And I served on the original blueprint committee. We are endeavoring to preserve our neighborhoods. That's one of the things that we value in Tallahassee, our natural environment, our trees. And as development occurs, we are committed to making sure that those things are protected. But we've got to grow. It has to be responsible growth. And we have endeavored to do that as a city.
Thank you. We're going to stay with this topic of development here. And Mr. Schack, you're going to have the first shot at this one. South City is one of Tallahassee's poorest neighborhoods, facing a host of challenges. In recent history, it was included into the greater Frenchtown and Southside CRA districts. What specific initiatives and efforts need to take place in the short term and long term within South City to improve its economic condition?
Well, in the short term, we need to get some businesses in that area. We need to build some, have some economic growth in that area. You know, one of the jobs of government or city government is to use the private sector and give them initiatives that'll help spark economic growth. And that's something we need in that area. We've been needing that for many, many years. So, and in the long term, we need to make it affordable to live out there, which we continue to talk about. So, you know, Blueprint's been something that's been around for 2 decades. We need to be allocating Blueprint funds in the areas that need it. You know, when you have 20 and 30 years down the road, you're planning. If a Category 3 hurricane ever hits Tallahassee, or a pandemic, if you will, you have to decide, do some reallocations to those funds. So I think we need to be investing in those neighborhoods that have been promised change for what now? A few decades. So that's what we need to do.
Thank you. Ms. Brown, same question. Ms. Brown? Can you hear us, Ms. Brown?
It looked like she froze.
Yeah, I think we're going to keep moving here. Let's see. Ms. Halter, same question.
I believe we all agree that Tallahassee needs more business. I observed businesses taking 8 and 9 months to open. I don't know why they didn't fold before they opened. I saw one that did fold a half year later. It's very difficult to get a business started here. One person I spoke of told me they've been trying to get a permit to open a convenience store in South Tallahassee for 2 years. And other candidates, you know, we all agree on the new businesses, but I hear you saying you want to limit which business and where to put businesses. How can you know which businesses will be successful? Encourage business by making it easier for them to get started and give them incentives to train employees. You also talk about so many of our citizens' education so they can't get better jobs. Things are there, teachers are there to teach them. If we can help them with childcare so they can learn to read, for example, and get a better job.
Thank you. Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you, William. One of the first things I did as a commissioner was advocate for extending the CRA boundaries to include South City. The boundaries did not include South City when I came to the commission 6 years ago. I was successful in getting that. And so we're now able to invest those CRA funds in the South City community. That community houses one of our largest public housing projects. Many of the neighborhoods are in disrepair. So one of the first things we've got to do is to put infrastructure in place to support economic growth in those areas: roads, sidewalks, sewage, drainage, landscaping and streetscaping, to make them attractive areas where people want to live, additional affordable and workforce housing. And that's what we're doing. That's what I've advocated for during my time on the commission. As a member of the Sales Tax Committee, I advocated for a $5 million Star Metro transfer facility, which will be placed in the South City neighborhood, which will be a catalyst for growth in that area. Those are the kinds of initiatives we've got going. I have advocated for the widening of Orange Avenue, and we're doing a study now to look at widening Orange Avenue so that we can encourage economic growth and residential growth, investing in those neighborhoods and making them attractive for development without gentrification.
All right. Dr. Seay, I believe you have the last word on this question.
Okay, and I want to say that exactly, how do we develop that without gentrification? How do we develop it in order to include the people who are there? We need to make it a very desirable neighborhood. One way might be to bring in some industry that's really high profile, because let's face it, The CRA has yet, or Blueprint has yet to go over there and do any of those infrastructure things. They seem to be working on some things now because they're in anticipation of this new South City initiative. But we also have to come back in and support the school system. Is going to have to bring its game up. And that whole issue about infant mortality is going to have to be addressed. So South City has some issues that have not been rectified. And those kinds of things will keep a community from being able to rise. But I do think that if we can turn our attention to it and address the actual things that the community is facing instead of talking about it, but actually get in there and get it done, I think it could have been turned around quite some time ago. But such has not been the case.
Thank you. All right. Ms. Brown is back. Ms. Brown, did you want to have any thoughts on the South City CRA?
Say that again.
Yes, we're looking for
having
your thoughts on
residual
the South City
feedback.
CRA. Can you hear us?
As far as the CRA, yes, we need to start reallocating those funds from the CRA and even the Blueprint itself. But the thing is that we need to we start investing in people. We start in bottom-up investing. You know, like I said before, we need to put equity back into the communities. And we need to have resources, available, and living wages for people in our communities. So it's about bottom up investment. No more investing in corporations and stuff at the top. If you invest, then people can thrive. If you invest in small business and give them incentives to hire people from $15 to $25, then we'll thrive. So we start investing in people, and that's the way we work.
All right, thank you. We're now going back to the League of Women Voters, who is going to take us to a new topic, and Ms. Brown will have the first shot at this question. Christine?
This question comes from our forum partner, the NAACP. How would you respond to citizens who support the creation of an independent police review board?
In regards to the police review board, I feel that all you can do is review. Really, no power for citizens when it comes down to a police review board. We need a board that actually can control things. We elect the citizens. We have power to subpoena, power to hire and fire police officers. So a police review board has no power to do anything or to make any changes. And it really should be people, you and me in these communities that should have that type of control. Civilian Police Accountability Council is what we really need as far as in our community, not a review board. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Halter?
Well, I believe we have police accountability in Tallahassee. When I was in college, I marched against police brutality. My grandmother, sister, and Uncle Tello lived in the barrio in an unpainted wooden house. The closest they had to children were their 2 nephews and their 3 nieces. One of the nephews got involved with a gang and went to prison. There was no police protection in the barrio. That uncle gave away a fortune to get police protection. I don't think we need a review board. I really think it's already in place. Doing more interfering of our police being able to do their jobs when they really care about us is not the way to go. Now, people who have been stopped by police, well, young men who speed a lot, okay, me when I sped when I was younger, don't necessarily like police.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you, William. I think, William, we have an excellent police force here in the city of Tallahassee. In the 40 years that I've lived here, I can't recall instances where police have brutalized citizens like what we have seen in other communities throughout the country that have caused the riot, well, not riots, the protest, I'm sorry about using the word riots, but the protest that we've seen. We talked to the young people that were on the streets protesting about the issues here in our city, and there were two things that they told us they'd like to see. One was an app to activate our police cameras. Two was a citizen review board, and we immediately acted upon that. Our attorney looked at best practices in terms of a citizen review board from throughout the state of Florida and came back with a recommendation to us that we accepted. And we will be bringing that to the community to get their input as well. The chief has established his own citizen advisory committee. He's now working on a youth citizen advisory committee to advise him on policy changes that need to be made in the police department here in Tallahassee. We've already begun to make some of those policy changes, like no chokeholds, no knock warrants.
Thank you.
Thank you, William.
Dr. Seay.
Okay, I was just checking my notes, and we had 3 murders here, June 18th, June 25th, and July 11th. We have a problem. I'm hoping that this review board is elected, has power to affect change, and to begin to ferret out those responses that the police make, which are not appropriate for the scenario in which they find themselves, and that there is immediate response to that. I'm not sure that we've had any kind of immediate response or any consequences at all that I can think of for these past 3 murders since June the 18th. So we're going to have transparency. We need to see the films. We need to have the whole picture laid out for us. There's going to have to be accountability, and I don't believe we're having any accountability in real time that we can see the process working. These things, these responses that Mr. Richardson has mentioned may have happened, but I'm not seeing or hearing much about it. There's no follow through. It's the most important thing that we have to face as we consider how we're going to reallocate the monies that the police have been given.
Thank you. Commissioner Richardson, would you like to respond to that for 30 seconds?
Well, I would correct Ms. Seay. I assume she's talking about the officer-involved shootings. Those have not been considered murders. They're still in the process of being litigated. A grand jury has not looked at the evidence and determined what the outcome of those situations are. So that's misinformation that's being put out there. I think that the review committee, based on state law, cannot have subpoena authority. And if we want an elected review board, which I don't support, that would have to be put to a vote of the people to change the city charter.
Thank you. Mr. Schack, you have the last word of this question.
Okay, great. Well, I think we have something like 5 times that amount of murders. So this community should not be just focusing on murders that have to do with police involvement. We have a serious problem of record murders here in this city. So we should be addressing that. Now, as far as a review board goes, if that's where this community ends up going or wants to go, we gotta make sure that we balance transparency with fairness. We can't allow, we have to allow due process to win the day. We have a system in our law of a grand jury looks at evidence. And if you stop that with just police involved incidents, you have to stop it for all incidents. So for all crimes, and that's certainly not a direction we want to go. Evidence is evidence. and no one has the right to it, before the court does. So we need to keep that in mind. The other thing is, if our public safety was such an issue, to create something like a Citizens Advisory Council with 88 people on it, and it's going to be dwindled down to 30, and they haven't even met until last month or earlier this month. We could have had a Zoom meeting, and then we're talking about the murders happening in June and July. Maybe as this commission could have met, or this advisory board could have met, there could have been some things solved there. But we're not taking it serious, and we need to. And if it has to do with that, if it has to do with the Citizens Review Board, then that's what it has to be.
All right. Let's see. We are going to keep going here. We're going to stay with policing. There's a lot of talk these days about defund the police. I'm curious what that means to you, and is there any part of that message that resonates with you? Ms. Halter, you have the first word on this question.
From what I've said earlier, and the reason I started running was because of the crime rate in Tallahassee. Defunding would be the worst thing we could do. We have a good police force. I think we need to do more than slap them down. So I'm totally against them. And I am very happy with all you other candidates talking about crime. Finally. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Richardson, same question.
Thank you, William. I too support our police department. They do a tremendous job of keeping our city safe. As someone who has been the victim of crime, my family and I, a number of times now, I can tell you the quality of work that they do in keeping our community safe. As a commissioner, I voted to provide additional funds to the police department to hire the staff that they needed. They are still short because there's a problem with recruiting police officers to patrol our community. And so we have to provide them with the staffing that they need, the technology that's required, and we put money into those. I think what they're talking about in terms of defunding the police, and I don't agree with defunding police operations at all, is for those activities that it may require a social service agency to intervene on, that we might look at putting more money into those areas, if in fact it does not require police intervention. And so I think that that's what the defunding the police issue surrounds.
Thank you. Dr. Seay, same question.
Thank you. I believe in community policing. I'd like to see police officers live in the communities that they serve. Begin to know the people that they're working with. Let the people begin to respect them again. Community policing could include a home for the police officer and his family. We have budget issues. They have recruitment issues. There are people who might be attracted to the notion of community policing. And for that, they should have a certain amount of assets given to them, which would include a home. I think that would change the whole tenor of the police department. As far as refunding, it's about reappropriations of the money. It's about giving money to organizations that can intervene in issues related to mental health, homelessness, and other kinds of crises that don't have anything to do with any kind of illegal activity. That's where our police department is beginning to show its edges. It's not really prepared to deal with social service issues. So let's take a portion of their funding and let's fund that which would work and would benefit the community exponentially. In addition, as I've mentioned, let's recruit folks. Let's take care of our police. Let's make sure that they're safe, that they have enough money to live on, that they don't have to take second jobs and do this other security work. Let's make sure that they are well taken care of by letting them live in the home that we provide for them.
Thank you. Mr. Schack.
Yes, thanks for the question. I think defunding the police depends on who you ask what it means. But, if you ask me, I would say that the city of Tallahassee has been defunding the police for many, many years. We are in a situation where we have never caught up on the amount of officers needed. We are in a situation where the city police department is used to be a model for the entire country on policing, and police departments used to call them and ask them for help. And what we've done is make it to where we're never catching up with the amount of officers that are being hired. We're never catching up with the amount of recruits that we're getting. So we're going to have to be really creative. Maybe we hire a non-sworn force that helps with traffic accidents and things like that. So we don't have officers taking time out of their day to process a car crash. Those are things that we can do. But obviously, in this climate, training is the key. And, we need to train and educate and have the most advanced forms of interpersonal contact we could possibly give our officers. And then we need to partner with some of the nonprofits in this community. And I'm a big proponent of funding nonprofits that do a lot of the work that we need in this community already. So, but the bottom line is we need staffing to do all that. So, defunding the police as far as staffing is something we just can't do.
Thank you. Ms. Brown, you have the last word on this question.
For the past 40 years, we have cut social services and the burden on police and communities. Defund the police means that we need to start looking at these bloated police budgets and reallocating those funds to social services and bottom-up investments approach. This is essential to my campaign platform. The evidence shows that policing doesn't reduce crime. If you put a CPAC, Civilian Police Accountability Council, in place, and start investing in really putting money into the community, dumping equity into the community. If you do both those things, I promise you, crime rate will go down. So let's start investing in people, and we can reduce the crime that's happening in the community.
Thank you. Staying with policing, one last question before we go to our lightning round, where we'll change things up a bit. Commissioner Richardson, as it relates to crime, we've had 13 fatal shootings so far this year. I think you referenced earlier the recent shooting death of a young 16-year-old in a church parking lot.
Yes.
What, if anything, can the city do to stop such tragedy?
Well, William, it's going to take a collective effort. We cannot police ourselves out of crime. And I give the police department credit, because under Chief DeLeo, they started the community policing. I would go during the summers and walk with officers through some of the high crime neighborhoods so that they could begin to build relationships with the residents. And what was horrifying was the fact that we had senior citizens in some of those neighborhoods who were so glad to see our officers coming through, because they were afraid to even go out and check their mail. And so it's going to take all of us working together as a community to address this crime problem, especially among our young people, providing them with education and training, and providing them with jobs and programs like our Tempo program and our Tallahassee Future Leaders Academy that we have every summer. Businesses being involved in providing opportunities for our young people, working with neighborhoods to establish Crime Watch activities, which is what we did in our neighborhood, and we saw a reduction of crime. We invested in cameras in the Bond community, which they asked for, and we saw a 30% reduction in crime in that community just by putting cameras in place. So those are the kinds of things that we're going to have to do collectively as a city to address our crime problem.
Dr. Seay, same question.
Can you imagine growing up and never, ever passing a reading test from 3rd grade all the way through high school, and you graduate, you still can't read, but now you're a man or a woman and you're expected to go out there and make it happen? these communities that we have here are filled with people who are undereducated, and they may very well be vulnerable to these various crime-ridden folks who seem to be coming into the community. They're vulnerable, and they're trying to make a living. They've turned to crime, and it's made the whole community unsettled. We're going to have to get to the root cause of this and make sure that people are able to pursue the positions they want and to get the jobs that they want. This is something that has to start very early on. And what we're looking at the effects of not properly preparing our children for adulthood. And this happens in every society where this kind of neglect has been allowed to happen. Now, the thing is, the school system seems to tout and toot its own horn, but the record shows, the data shows that there's very little change in the past 20 years of the failure rates among our students. So we're going to have to do a holistic approach to this and start this off at a very early age so that we don't end up with these kinds of tragic results.
Thank you. Mr. Schack, same question.
Can you repeat what the question was, please?
Sure. The question was, as it relates to crime, we've had 13 fatal shootings so far this year, including the recent shooting death of a 16-year-old in a church parking lot. What, if anything, can the city do to stop such tragedy?
Well, number one, we have to make sure that we are, developing some of these community policing that we keep talking about. We talk about community policing all the time. We have to put community policing in. We have to actually do it. We have to put it in the communities. And the other thing is, I believe that we need to bring some type of DARE program back to our schools, to where we can start educating our kids on issues that happen. It's not just about drugs anymore. It's about bullying and the other things and stresses in kids' lives nowadays. We need to have kids, see a police officer in that light, learn about their community, and have someone that they can trust. And then what that'll do, hopefully, is make people trust the police again. Right now, a lot of kids grow up thinking the police are the enemy, and they're not. And you're talking about, someone mentioned people in the community not even going outside to check the mail. That all starts with communities themselves. Communities have to partner with police. And I know that there's plenty of community leaders in this city that are willing to do that. We just have to fund those organizations that are doing that already. In addition, there's only a few things that spark shootings in any city: drugs and money. And if we create jobs in those communities and try to work on getting drugs off the streets, we're gonna reduce our murder rate and crime overall.
Thank you. Ms. Brown, same question.
You want to stop this. You want to reduce this. You start with one, putting equity back into education. You start giving the resources and the curriculums and the activities that all children need across the board in this community. You put equity back into the education system. You put equity into the community. You put money into the community. You give power to. You want trust from the people when it comes down to police. You want a relationship with the people as far as like with the police. You start a civilian police accountability council that has power. That's how you gain trust. That's how you build relationships. And that's how you strengthen the community, and you help our children in the community to get the best education they can get. Give jobs to mothers. Have them go into the schools and assist the children. Give jobs to the mothers in the communities, to the people in the communities to help with the kids. That's how you build relationships with the community, and that's how you build strength within the community and prosperity. Thank you.
Ms. Halter, you have the last word on this question.
One way to build in a community is when you have a policeman in the schools. The Tallahassee Police Department and the commissioners do not have policemen in the schools. It should be a partnership with the schools. And the children then would be much better at relating to policemen because there's this man there protecting them, or woman there protecting them. We need that more than anything else. We need neighbors to talk to each other. So neighborhood alliances, neighborhood alerts. So they talk to each other, know when something's going on, and call the police so they can stop it before it gets totally out of hand. Give the police the power, the authority to get rid of and whatever tools they need to get rid of these violent gangs that have moved in from out of the area. And lastly, we're talking about people who I do not believe that are good citizens who can't read are part of it. I believe it's the gangs and the people who are into drugs. People who need better jobs, help them get better jobs with teaching them to read. They don't know where to get the resources to read and the resources for affordable housing. Help people on the radio, through churches, through TV ads.
Thank you. We're now going to change things up a little bit. We're going to move on to our lightning round. So here's the way it works. Most of these questions are pretty much either yes or no, or pretty narrow questions. What I'm going to ask from you is, simple answers. A yes, a no. Certainly, please add in a and or a because. Obviously, we don't want endless long-term or run-on sentences, but we're trying to keep each answer to one sentence, and we're going to move quickly. So, Ms. Brown, we are starting with you. And that question is, if you had to depend on one source for coronavirus guidance, who or what would it be?
Dr. Fossey and the medical experts.
Thank you. Ms. Halter, same question.
Dr. Richard Brantley out of Midland, Texas. He hasn't lost a patient.
All right. Commissioner Richardson.
I would depend on our local health department and medical professionals throughout our own community to lead us in how we address this pandemic.
Dr. Seay?
I'm going with Dr. Fauci.
All right. Mr. Schack?
Well, I think the medical experts, but then the citizens of Tallahassee, we just need to follow the guidelines. And I think our citizens are doing that.
Thank you. Do you wear a mask outside your home? Ms. Halter?
Yes, I do when I am near anybody. When I'm walking by myself, no.
All right. Commissioner Richardson?
I do. I'm in that, well, I guess everybody's in that category now, but I'm one of our senior citizens, and I do follow the CDC guidelines whenever I'm outside of my home.
Dr. Seay?
Yes, always wear a mask.
Mr. Schack?
Not only do I wear a mask every day when I'm preparing 600 meals for the homeless, but I also wear it every time me and my family go out.
All right. Ms. Brown?
Yes.
All right. Very simple answer. I like it. Let's keep going. Commissioner Richardson, do you think schools should open on time this year? And, this could be a hypothetical for some candidates. Would you feel safe sending your kids to in-person school? One sentence. Commissioner Richardson.
Well, my background is in education, and I know that I was on the Zoom meeting today where they are battling with that issue or grappling with it right now. I've got a 15-year-old that will be a sophomore next year, and she's not going back to school this year until my wife and I are comfortable that it's safe.
Okay. Dr. Seay?
Absolutely not.
All right. Mr. Schack?
Well, I'm going to let the school board decide, but I'm going to send my daughter to school. So,
Ms. Brown?
No.
Ms. Halter?
Some children do well with the Zoom learning and the online learning. Others need a school teacher in front of them.
Thank you. Next question. We're starting with Dr. Seay on this one. What is your single most prized endorsement? Obviously, other than your constituents, single most prized endorsement. Dr. Seay.
Oh, I think colleagues that I had been working with on various projects thought actually that I should run. And they have been behind me ever since.
Mr. Schack.
You can't do a run for political office without the 100% support of your wife. So my wife is my most important endorsement because she sees the work I do in this community and she knows my heart is in the right place to run.
Thank you. Ms. Brown.
When I speak with people who are struggling to get by, unemployed, working 3 jobs, homeless, and then they say, I don't usually get into politics, but I'm going to show up to vote for Trish Brown.
Thank you. Ms. Halter.
The people that I met walking my petition to get me on the ballot.
Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you, William. My most prized endorsement has been the voters of Tallahassee and Leon County that have elected me to the Leon County School Board, that have elected me to the State House of Representatives, and have elected me twice now to serve them on their city commission.
Thank you.
Organizationally, it would be the firefighters and paramedics who have endorsed my campaign.
All right. Mr. Schack, are there any limits on who you will accept campaign contributions from? One sentence.
Well, when you're the outsider in a way and not a city insider, no, I don't think there's anybody I wouldn't take money from. If anybody wants to support our campaign, they can.
Thank you. Ms. Brown.
I do not accept campaign donations from anti-union groups, from contractors or developers, or any organizations who would be a conflict of interest in representing the people of Tallahassee.
Thank you. Ms. Halter.
I can't accept contributions from anyone who wants to give me more than $250, but I have not had that as a problem.
My turn? Yeah.
Commissioner Richardson's turn.
Okay.
Yeah, I will accept contributions from the citizens of this community, William, as long as it's ethical, moral, and legal. I will not accept contributions from those that I may have a philosophical or political difference with, or anyone that would expect that my vote would be based on a campaign contribution.
All right, Dr. Seay.
Yes, I'm a grassroots kind of organizing person, and I'm only accepting money from other regular working folks.
Thank you. This is for the non-incumbents. We'll start with you, Ms. Brown. How many city commission meetings have you been to or spoken at?
I've been to many city commission meetings, and I've spoken at least 4 or 5.
Uh-oh.
William?
You froze.
Hello, William.
There.
Randy, what happened to us?
You muted, Miss Ratwood. Oh, Lord.
You're muted.
I'm muted. Okay, here I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Looks like William is frozen. So let's just keep going with that question.
Okay.
How many city commission meetings, Ms. Halter?
0. I've only seen them that were recorded.
Okay. Dr. Seay.
Hundreds, and I've spoken at most of them.
Okay. Mr. Schack?
Oh, where'd he go?
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
People are dropping like flies.
Technology. Can't live with it, can't live without it.
Okay, so while they're getting back, let's go to the next question, which is name one specific thing Name one city ordinance or policy that should be immediately repealed. And let's start with Commissioner Richardson.
I can't think of one policy that I would say immediately needs to be repealed, Randy, because we are always careful to include citizen input in ordinances that come before us. And we're careful to make sure that it is in the best interest of this community. And so those that are in place are there because they're necessary for the governance of our community.
Thank you. Dr. Seay?
Yes, I think back to the CRA again. I think that should be managed and have overview by regular citizens as opposed to elected officials. The regular citizens for whom the policies apply should be able to administer that program.
Okay, great. I think Mr. Schack is coming back, but Ms. Brown, go ahead.
Criminalization of drugs. Therefore, we should decriminalize drugs.
Okay. Name one specific thing the city is not spending enough money on, and one thing the city is spending too much money on. Dr. Seay.
Well, of course, those big developments, that's the Civic Center and the Walani, those big ticket items are kind of unconscionable in the face of the fact that many infrastructure projects have yet to be completed after some 20 years, especially with Blueprint, where that penny tax affects people in poverty way more than it does the rest of us, and yet they're not necessarily benefiting from it.
Okay. Ms. Brown.
Again, we are spending too much money to build a convention center for the wealthiest institution in the city and many other projects here. And we are not spending enough money on social services and other programs to decrease poverty.
Okay, good. Ms. Halter.
Especially vehicles with using alternative fuel and free charging stations.
Okay. And something too much we're spending on?
That's what we're spending too much on.
Oh, I see. So what are we not spending enough on?
I would go for helping the police.
Please. Okay, Commissioner Richardson?
Thank you, Randy. I think we have tried to be balanced in terms of what we fund in the community. I would like to see us put more money into social services. We have increased funding through our Community Human Service Partnership Program, but I think we can do more once our economy comes back and we have more fiscal resources to work with.
Okay, great. We have one last lightning level question, and Ms. Brown has kind of already answered this, but it's, what is your view on the decriminalization and or legalization of marijuana? Let's start with Ms. Halter.
I think that's a good idea, but it won't do any good unless it's changed at the federal level.
Right.
Okay. Commissioner Richardson.
Well, it's not an issue that we can control at the local level. As Ms. Halter mentioned, that's a state and federal issue. But I do agree with the medical use of marijuana and hemp for those who need it.
Dr. Seay?
I guess if that decriminalization is able to happen, is that going to be retroactive? How does that work with the people who have been put in prison because of it?
Okay. So, but do you think going forward it should be legalized?
Yeah, I think it's going to have to be decriminalized, yeah.
Okay. And Ms. Brown, did you want to put in one last word on that?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, again, yes, decriminalize marijuana. And I absolutely feel that like those that have been thrown in jail for marijuana use should be released. Absolutely.
Okay, great. I'm going to take us back to Christine Coble from the League of Women Voters for the next question.
Thank you. How would you further strengthen the city's ethics code and the city's independent ethics board? And then I'll have a follow-up question. Commissioner Richardson.
Well, I certainly supported the ethics creation of the ethics board through the city charter. I think we have worked with the ethics board. We have one of the strongest ethics ordinances in the state of Florida. They are independent, and so I will rely on citizen input to that board and the board itself to make recommendations to us as to how they think it can be strengthened. But I'm confident that we have one of the strongest ethics ordinances in the state of Florida. And we've also gone a step further to include a inspector general who will be the city auditor as a further step to ensure that no malfeasance occurs in the city of Tallahassee.
Thank you. Dr. Seay?
Yes, I'm thinking that that board is going to have to be elected. I'm not quite sure what the inspector general's position is going to be. If this is going to be an independent ethics board, it's going to have the ability to issue sanctions and other kinds of statements about whatever they find. But I do think it should be elected, and I think it needs to have the power to do what has to be done.
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
William.
The storm knocked me out. 2020.
Ms. Brown?
Oh,
I may have knocked out Ms. Brown. Can you hear us?
Okay. I'll go ahead and ask the follow-up question.
Hello?
Was that Ms. Brown?
Hello?
Hey, Ms. Brown, are you able to answer
Hello?
the question?
Yes. I was just waiting for somebody to tell me it was my turn. I would have the ethics board elected by the citizens of Tallahassee.
Thank you. And then for a follow-up, and this starts with Ms. Halter.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you
I didn't
feel?
answer that one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The board is from a wide variety of organizations in the city. And that makes it less able to be influenced. Putting somebody on the board who was assigned or chosen by some elected official or the commissioners, I don't think is a great idea.
Thank you. Do you feel the current $25 campaign contribution refund offered by the city through the ethics office is sufficient to reduce the influence of big money in elections? And do you have any other ideas to address the perceived influence? And I believe that we start with Dr. Seay.
okay. I think the $25 is a very nice gesture. And it certainly will help those folks with the smaller donations that come in. I don't see how it does anything to prevent abuse, because what I've noticed is that companies give the maximum amount several times. It's just, maybe the secretaries give it, and then the parking lot people give it, but the $25 wouldn't do anything to stop that, and that goes on right now.
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
I think that is an awesome thing that is that's in place. This allows people in the community to be able to participate in the voting and actually get money back. I think that's a beautiful thing. I think it's giving back to the community again, and I really feel good about that. Anything that helps put money back in people's pocket makes me feel. So yeah, I think that's a great thing.
Mr. Schack, I see that you're back.
Yeah, welcome to Tallahassee.
Is back.
Welcome to Tallahassee.
Well, the first part of this question, I'll give you the opportunity to answer.
Okay.
How would you further strengthen the city's ethics code and the city's independent ethics board?
Well, I would strengthen it by letting it do its job instead of creating something brand new like an inspector general. We need to allow this ethics board that was elected years ago to actually do some work. So that would strengthen it by having it actually do what they were voted on by the public to do. What's the second part of the question?
I'll get that to you. I think Dr. C was next. Am I correct?
Didn't I answer already? I'm sorry. What was the question about the ethics board and its independence? Yeah. I did that one.
And you said something about the $25 campaign?
Yep. Remember I said it didn't help the big companies?
Okay. Mr. Schack.
Yes.
And the question was, do you feel the current $25 campaign contribution refund offered by the city through the ethics office is sufficient to reduce the influence of big money in elections? And do you have any other ideas to address this perceived influence?
No, I think it's fine to have that $25, but the reality is, let's face it, if what we need to be fixing is that you can have one business write a check for every single address that they have and bundle thousands of dollars. And also people say as long as it's ethical and legal, but when you have LLCs in Las Vegas, Nevada, giving you hundreds of dollars, there's an issue there. And those are the things that we need to focus on. The $25 is nice, but that big money that's being bundled to all of our current commissioners is something we need to address.
Thank you. Commissioner Richardson.
Well, I'm going to say, first of all, none of that big money has been bundled for me ever in my professional or in my political career. I think that it starts with the individual. If the individual is of such that they can be influenced by money or their votes can be influenced by money, that's not the person we want to elect to public office. I think the $25 rebate or refund is a good first step. We have lowered the maximum amount of contributions that an individual or entity can give to $250, where in other municipalities it's $1,000, and they bundle those $1,000 checks. So it starts with the individual. I think where we are is a good step in the right direction, but it all comes down to the individual and those people that our community elects to serve them in public office.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Yes.
So could I have that 30 seconds?
Sure.
To ask a question. Mr. Richardson, are you saying that your contribution?
I'm not answering questions. We're not here to answer
you're not
questions.
Answering. Okay. Oh, I thought we had an opportunity to ask. Let me just say then, I noticed that if I'm not mistaken, if the record isn't incorrect, several bundled contributions from companies come to your contribution portal. So I wasn't quite sure what you meant when you said that that's not something that happens to you. And it looked as if that's what was happening in the Vote Leon documents, but perhaps they're wrong.
Commissioner Richardson?
He said he wasn't going to answer that.
I have no desire to answer that kind of question because it implicates that I've done something illegal or unethical or immoral, and I have not. Those citizens that contributed to my campaign legally could make those contributions, and that's why I accepted them.
All right. We've got one last question before we're going to closing arguments. This one is a short one, just looking for a 1-minute reply.
Just a minute, I didn't get to answer that.
I'm sorry, what was that?
She didn't.
I didn't get to answer that.
Oh, who didn't?
I love
No,
the
no,
$25.
it kind of got
That's the
out of
reason I
order.
got contributions. I say I love the $25. That's the only reason I have contributions, because I will tell people about that.
All right, excellent. I'm sorry. Obviously, the storm has played chaos, and yet we endure. We're almost to the end here. There have been high-profile investigations and even the arrest of a sitting commissioner. Is corruption still a problem at the city level, and what would you recommend to address it? Ms. Halter, we're starting with, or actually, I think it's Commissioner Richardson. We start with you on this one.
Well, I would say that the arrest of a sitting commissioner, that was handled in the legal system. It was illegal what was done, and it's being litigated through the legal system. And I think that person will come to trial here soon and have that rectified in the legal system. And William, what was the other part of the question?
Is corruption still a problem at the city level? And
corruption has never been a problem in the city of Tallahassee. But what we've done to prevent corruption is to put in place one of the strongest ethics ordinances in the state of Florida. And our city manager has also made ethics training and ethical behavior a part of the culture of the organization of the city of Tallahassee. So no, it's not a problem in the city of Tallahassee currently. And we don't expect that it will be, because that's not the expectation that we have of our employees. And its ethical behavior is being made a part of the culture of our organization.
Dr. C, same question.
I'm thinking that if there was corruption in one instance, there's other corruption there. You have to wonder how so many projects get okayed when nobody wanted them. Certain projects are pushed forward and supported by council folk, even though the people say no. So you have to ask yourself, how is that possible? I mean, what's really going on? We have that Washington Hotel debacle to look at to remind us that something's not right. Now, maybe we haven't been able to put our FBI finger on it, but I mean, common sense is letting us know that there's something not right.
Thank you. Mr. Schack.
I don't know if I can answer it in 30 seconds, but the FBI put up shop downtown for 2 years. We had the city commission put out a full page ad, basically just apologizing and calling it negativity of the moment. And unfortunately, as we sit here, there are 5 people or 4 people who say that there's a problem that we need to fix and address. And that's why we're running for office here in this seat.
Thank you. Ms. Brown.
We have the we have the hotel issue, and we also have the Edison situation that goes way back. As far as like the corruption, we need to make sure that, well, I'll say we be happy if people were happy, and we wouldn't be crying out for why we're not being heard and why we're not being listened to. So we need to make sure that that all city meetings are broadcast and are appointed. I mean, as far as like scheduled in an appropriate manner where all people can be able to it. We need to have an elect ethics board. We need to make that the donors to a candidate are not having favors done for them. And we need to increase democratic participation by canvassing neighborhoods for input on city decisions from the very beginning to the very end of the decisions. We need people at the table from the beginning to the decisions are being made and projects are being thrown at the table.
Thank you. Ms. Halter, last word on the question.
Well, I've watched and wondered why there are FBI investigations of county or city or school politicians here. It seems like every other year. I didn't see that in other cities. Now, I believe the way to handle that is really more career politicians. And a career politician who goes from city to county to state to city and back and forth knows a whole lot more than somebody who's just been elected, and they can get in more trouble. Another way to keep them a bit more honest is elect the people who have actually held jobs, understand the value of money when you're making millions of dollars decisions.
Thank you. All right, it is closing time.
Mr. Hatfield,
Yes.
if I could, I just want to I want to find out if there's a way I can answer some of the questions that I missed due to Mother Nature.
Oh, unfortunately, I also missed those questions. I bet we're on the same. Did you get whacked by the storm too?
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet Randy would know better than I, unfortunately. Randy, are you here?
Okay, let's see. I think you disappeared in the middle of the lightning round, right?
I think so.
So we had name one city ordinance or policy that should be immediately repealed.
Well, I think instead of repealing something, I think our city commission needs to be very proactive and start planning on the MOU running out on the CDA. We need to start planning that now. So that's something I think we need to be focused on instead of as something to do with public safety that I'm a proponent of.
Okay, one sentence. So Randy, keep going.
Name one specific thing the city is not spending enough money on, and one thing the city is spending too much money on.
Well, as my campaign states, we're not spending enough money helping the nonprofit community handle city problems. And one thing we're spending too much money on are lobbyists and consultants that don't seem to be bringing our city a bang for our buck.
And the last one you missed was, what's your view on marijuana? Should it be decriminalized or legalized or not?
Well, I'll defer to the chief of police and the sheriff, who both have said that it's a gateway drug. And, however, I don't believe we should be putting people in jail for minor drug offenses.
All right.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
You are caught up. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm glad that we managed to beat Mother Nature in this forum. All right. So it is closing arguments. This is your opportunity, minute and 30 seconds to speak directly to voters. Feel free to share a website. Dr. C, we're going to start with you.
Okay, thank you. We need to think about affordable housing. We need to make sure that everybody in the city has an opportunity to own a home if they can, and we need to make that path available for them. We need to think about our schools and how the city can, in some way, impact the outcomes that we're having there. Development. We've got to get a handle on what's equitable in development. Everyone wants the city to prosper and grow. We've got to have a plan that is something that everyone can buy into. And it's not one where everyone gains and other people lose. So we need to work that through. Finally, I think that we're going to have to address the returning citizens and make sure that they are able to capture this last chance to prosper in the community as other folks have. My website is electjerryseay.org, and my next porch talk will be with a Zoomer. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Mr. Schack.
Okay, thanks. I've been standing up for people, helping people, and working to impact lives my entire career. My run for political office is just an extension of my life's work. And that's just the next step in my career, if you will. You can view all of my work on billschack.com, my website, and I look forward to being that new voice on the city commission. During these times, our community needs to work together to embrace our differences as something to celebrate and honor. we do this by welcoming everyone into the conversation, which is something we have to do. So I want to thank the Democrat and League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. Please visit BillSchack.com and my Facebook page, Bill Schack for City Commission. Please vote for me on August 18th. Thanks again to all the candidates.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. You're next.
Okay. A true boots to the ground, proud grassroots organizer. Naturally, I care about my people, all my sisters, brothers, black, brown, and white, my communities, my state, and my country. Multi-million dollar projects like Wallene are giving resources to those that already have resources. Plan is to find misallocations of resources and put them towards bottom-up community investments. I want to invest in big projects that help support impacted communities across the board. One such project is on public broadband infrastructure. The internet is not a luxury anymore. Everyone needs to apply for jobs, to apply for assistance, and children and students in need of homework and research, and even people critical assistance. We need to take our resources and invest in quality housing, affordable and free healthcare, and child care. Fight for unions, living wage in our community. What is a job to someone who makes poverty wages? I'm a voice for those who, and I'm a warrior for those who want justice and equality, and I'm a peacemaker for those who cry for peace. All my life, I've served my people, and now I want to serve them in a way that makes the community all inclusive. Find out about me at Tallahassee.com. I represent the people, and I'm running for people's seat.
All right, Ms. Halter, you're up next.
Yes. I studied political science and architecture with graduate studies in city planning. But I figured out after a while I didn't want to go into politics. It was just too messy. But after moving to Tallahassee 14 years ago, I had spent 27 years with the Navy. And I couldn't believe what was happening in Tallahassee, so I had to run. The crime rate is what prompted me to finally run. Not enough is being done about it. We need to clean up our city, and yes, that takes neighborhoods to do that, working with the police. And we need help for our kids in the schools. They need to be protected too. We need to get rid of these gangs. If you can reach me directly by calling me, 850-339-1798, or my email, halterhelps@gmail.com. Thank you for your vote.
Thank you. Commissioner Richardson, you are taking us out.
Thank you, William, representing the Tallahassee Democrat, and Christine, the League of Women Voters, for giving us this opportunity again to address the issues facing our community. I'm seeking re-election to continue the kind of leadership that I have brought in various capacities throughout this community. I look forward to working with my colleagues on the commission to continue to move our city forward, this all-America city that we've been twice designated. But I want to make it an all-America city for every citizen, regardless of where they live. And that's one of our biggest challenges, investing in those areas like the south side of Tallahassee and Frenchtown and the Providence neighborhoods that have been neglected over the years. I look forward to building our economy, bringing in more private industry, high wage, high skilled jobs, protecting our environment that we cherish here in Tallahassee. Those are some of the challenges facing us. And I think all of us working together as a community will continue Tallahassee and Leon County moving forward. And I look forward to being a part of that leadership. I can be reached at Curtis for City Commission, FOR.com. And I encourage you all, because of the pandemic, to vote by mail.
Thank you. All right. I want to thank you all, the League of Women Voters. I want to thank all of the candidates. I've heard it said often that politics is toxic, but this was a very civil discussion. Thank you for that. Our next forum will be at 1 p.m. tomorrow, Friday. It will be with the candidates for public defender. And FYI, you can find a replay of this and all of our interviews, warts and all, storms, wreaking havoc with connectivity and all, Tallahassee.com/elections. You can also look for our special election section, which will have interviews with these candidates and others. Will be printed on Sunday, August 2nd. And that's it. Have a great day. Thank you all.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
William. Thank you, Christine. Good
Thank
luck.
you.